Well, hello friends out there in YouTube land. Rob here today with Robert Hand Photography. We're going to be talking about one of my favorite camera brands from one of my favorite camera makers. That's the Fujifilm XT5 from, of course, Fujifilm. And this one might be controversial. I do believe there's one flaw I'd like to talk about today. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and jump right on into it. Guys, I want to welcome you back as we get this thing set up real quick and say, hey, it's time to have some fun talking about Fujifilm's brand new camera, the XT5. Now, I don't have that here, and that's okay. I've got the XT2 here. You guys know that I've shot with Fujifilm for quite some time, ever since, Fujifilm has been a big part of photography for me in my wedding photography business. I shot with the XT1 when it was first announced for 4 years, and maybe closer to 3.5, almost 4 years, and really enjoyed it. I used it, the X100S, and the X100 is part of my main camera setup for quite some time and had all the lenses and such like that. I even continued to use Fujifilm products even before the Instax Mini Evo. I used the Fujifilm Mini 90 for my instant photography at weddings, and it was quite a bit of fun. People loved it, and I used it. However, there was a point in time where I did move on from Fujifilm, and that was when I was in search of better low-light performance. At the time, Fujifilm's fast lens, you could get like a f2, 1.8, and even in some lenses, f1.4. And because of the crop factor, even when I was looking at my f1.8 primes on my full frame, such as my Sony a7 Mark II at the time, it just didn't give me the same kind of low-light quality that I wanted, specifically with noise. That was it for me. That was easy enough for me. When it was time for me to move, I did exactly that. I began shooting with, of course, Sony. And today I shoot very hybrid Sony and Panasonic. But I did not get rid of my Fujifilm cameras. In fact, I gave them to my son. I did sell one of my favorite cameras, and it happens to be the only camera that I ever really am sad about actually losing, and that was the Fujifilm X Pro 1. I sold that in order to upgrade to the Sony. I have a whole thing. I went from Nikon, then I went to Sony, and it's a thing that I did. We all go through our own photographic journey. But man, the camera that I really regret not having any longer is, of course, that Fujifilm X Pro 1. I love that with the 16mm f1.4. That was just a fantastic combination. I absolutely loved it quite a bit. So we're talking about the XT5, and although this is not the XT5 right here, XT5 will look quite a bit like this with some upgrades. This is the XT2. I shot with this for quite some time and, of course, gave it to my son. And this is one of the standard ways that we would use this camera. Check it out. There's a battery grip on it. We've got our camera. We've got the lens, in this case a prime, the 35 f2, which is like your 50 f3, basically, 2.8 on full frame, and then a flash. If you guys don't know much about the crop factor conversions and everything else, there are a difference. It's 1.5 from full frame, from APS-C to full frame. So if you want to know what a full frame equivalent of your lens and your aperture would be, multiply both the focal length and the aperture that's rated on the lens by, in this case, 1.5. So 35 millimeters times 1.5 is basically 50. And then f2 times 1.5 is f3, so it's basically f2.8. So this is like a 50mm f2.8. Many times I'll shoot 50mm f1.8. You guys can tell the difference there. So, use this quite a bit. My son still uses this for his personal photography. When we go out and photograph on weddings and things like that, we still use all of the Sony gear and the Panasonic gear that I have. But the brand new XT5 that came out is really just a sensational camera, right? 40 megapixel APS-C sensor. It'll do 6.2K internal recording. I believe that's HEVC, as well as 360 megabits per second inside the camera. Maybe that's just the 4K or the UHD. I'm not quite sure. So many options that are just right with this camera. What could I possibly think is wrong with it? Well, I'm going to say it here, and you'll see it if you've noticed any of the other cameras that are sitting on the table, right? And it is the battery grip, okay? If you guys don't know it yet, and I understand that maybe it doesn't affect most of you. In fact, 90% of you it doesn't affect. But not being able to put a battery grip on the camera is a gigantic issue for me. So I just want you to remember, I'm a wedding photographer, okay? If I show up to your wedding and you've paid me $5,000 to photograph your wedding, and I've got a camera like this or like this, a tiny little thing, and it's my main camera that I'm using or something like that, there is a presentation that does not happen immediately. I'm going to tell you right now, if you have a wedding photography business or something like that, clients like to see expensive looking gear. And a small point and shoot that looks like something you could get at Best Buy, which you could get all of these at Best Buy, could cause people to question. And if you are a brand new photographer, the last thing you need at a wedding are people questioning your camera choices. Now, this isn't a discussion about what happens at a wedding, but I will let you know that those of you that think gear does not matter, you're right when it comes to image creation. But you are wrong when it comes to perception. Until you build the confidence and the swagger, as well as the reputation and the website, your gear is going to be something you lean on heavily to help give you the confidence to photograph and move forwards. It's just something that you will notice. Now, speaking of which, I have that. I've got a little anecdote I'd like to share with you. I have a new photographer that's on my team, and this photographer has their own gear, and they wanted to photograph at a wedding with a Canon M50. And for me, that's just not the gear that I want to have my company represented with on location, an M50. A small M50 with a 35 millimeter lens, great lens, love the Canon, the M50 range. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a fine camera, but the camera itself doesn't present like what you would expect to have a professional that shows up, in my opinion. So as far as that's concerned, we show up like this. Okay, we show up with our Sony, or we show up with our larger camera, whatever it is, with our battery grip, ready to go with a flash. We all have to carry a couple flash, and we need a couple different cameras. It's okay if you're using one of these as a backup camera, but look what happens now when you're able to go ahead and put your battery grip on the camera, and then even a small flash. Well, immediately you gain quite a bit of functionality. In this instance, with the XT2, the battery grip does unlock some speed and additional functions. I don't necessarily know that a battery grip would be helpful, even if it was with the XT5. I know the XT5 doesn't have one. That's my pain point here. But generally, Fujifilm would put a couple of things unlockable with a battery grip. So the battery grip and the extra power would give it some more stuff. You'd have a better platform to holding on to the camera and making your grips and whatever you need to do, and you would have a different look. Even if you had a couple of these on your side, it just looks a little bit more professional when you're out there. Now, there's one thing that we can talk about. When you look at these two cameras side by side, even if we were to put a prime lens on here, right, you'll notice there's a big difference in shape and size. So man, after shooting for several years with the full frame cameras and enjoying the benefits of full frame, wouldn't it be nice to not have to lug that thing around all the time? Okay. But this idea, this modularity of the battery grip is a very important thing when it comes to photography, because it does allow you to take an interchangeable lens mirrorless camera and make it fit to a mission specific. You can dress it down or dress it up as much as you need, and it'll work out that way. So for me, when I look at the Fujifilm XT5, if I was in the market to buy a smaller set of cameras, which I actually am because I'm tired of, these things get heavy to carry around all the time, wouldn't mind something a little bit more intermediate. Fujifilm's image quality is not even in a question. It's a really great image quality. I would like to know how that 40 megapixel sensor does. I like the idea, or how it does in low light. I like the idea of the 6.2K internal, which is great. But not having the ability to use a battery grip with the camera takes the XT5 completely out of my list for cameras that I would buy. That's how important a battery grip is for me. Now, what has Fujifilm done? Well, they've gone ahead and actually put that battery grip functionality into their next grade of cameras higher. Specifically, they've put that functionality over there in their XH2 and XH2S. You can get the battery grip, and then you have all the features that you would like. Well, at that point in time, we go from something like $1,700 for the Fujifilm XT5. We're passing $2,500 or $2,200 for the 2, and then add a $300 battery gripper at $2,500. Friends, at $2,500, I don't know why you would consider buying the Fujifilm XT5 or the XH2 or anything, because the larger sensor, and even in something like the Panasonic S5 or even in your Sony A7 III. Yes, the A7 III doesn't have the bit rate and things like that, but the autofocus, the tracking in the Sonys, or the just the 6.2K that you can, or 5.9K output to Atomos Ninja, you can get the Ninja, the body kit, and the body for less than the cost of a lens kit with the XH2S or the XH2, and have all of the advantages that come with full frame. I just don't see it as a viable proposition for me. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've got this all wrong. Maybe my conversation and comments here hit you and stung you a little bit different. Maybe you don't mind the fact that it does not have a battery grip. But that really means that at best, I'd be photographing like this. And that just doesn't really do it for me. So all of that being said, what do you think? I'd like to turn it over to you guys in the comment section down below. Let me know if you knew about the fact that the XH5 or the XT5 does not have the battery grip adapter. They don't even make one for it. So if there does ever come out to be one for third party, it'll have to go on a post or something through here like many other third party battery grips already do. But it definitely won't give you any additional battery capacity like the current Fujifilm grips do. And it won't be that first party support that often unlocks those additional features. For me, it just seems to be a no-go. I guess that's my point of it. That's the end of it. I hope you had a good time with this video. I'd like to hear your thoughts in your comments below. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Use the Amazon links down below to pick up anything that you like. Send me a cup of coffee through PayPal, and I will catch up with you guys on the flip side. I'd like to say thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys next time. Bye for now.